In episode 27, I walk through the 7 rules of engagement that eliminate 80% of leadership frustrations. It's been one of our most popular episodes, and it has encoded in it one of our most powerful tools, the Rules of Engagement Guide. You can download that if you haven't listened to that episode by going to myrulesofengagement.com. In that, you're going to get the playbook we're going to talk about today, and you're going to get a complimentary disc assessment that will help you really decode your own behavioral patterns and communication styles. So as we dig into this episode today, you can go to myrulesofengagement.com to get your complimentary guide. I've started getting the same questions over and over about how to activate on this, how to deploy it in our organizations. In fact, I have clients now who have taken this practice and made it a standard operating procedure in their entire company. Today, I'm going to answer the most common questions I've received about actually implementing your rules of engagement. This is an Ask Me Anything format, and every question I'm answering today came from you, our community. Let's get into it. This is Leadership Unlocked. What exactly is this rules of engagement thing, and why does every leader need one? And that's a great question. Let me start with a story. About 15, maybe 17 years ago, I was sitting in my office, frustrated out of my mind, asking myself, why can't people just read my mind? It seems so obvious what we need to do and what I'm communicating. Why don't they just get it? And then it hit me. I haven't actually given them the playbook. I expected them to figure out through trial and error what mattered to me, how I make decisions, what drives me crazy, and what I valued most. And this was unfair. And because I'm a student of history, I realized that this practice of creating rules of engagement would give a playbook to my team to help us get on the same page, to help us get in sync. So I created this rules of engagement guide. And I want you to think of it as a leadership decoder ring. It's a document that codifies what you value as a leader, what you expect from yourself, what you expect from your team, how you give and receive feedback, how you make decisions, how you want to be approached, and your non-negotiables, the behaviors that just won't fly. It's not about control. It's about creating clarity. When your team knows how you operate, they can move faster, make better decisions, and stop guessing what you really want. And here's the magic. When you codify your expectations, you give people permission to call you out when you don't live up to them. There's a psychological safety factor that comes through this structure. If you haven't listened to episode 27 yet, go back. I tell the full story about my Apple Watch and how my COO called me out in a one-on-one meeting, and it really changed everything. All right, so our questions. First question, the one I get the most often is, I downloaded the guide and it's 7 sections. It feels overwhelming. I don't even know where to start. Help. Well, I love this question because it reveals the perfectionism trap that stops most leaders from ever finishing their work. Here's what I tell every single leader I coach, every person that I work with. Do not aim for perfect. Aim for 70% complete. Pick one section. I recommend starting with what I expect from my team and just start writing. Bullet points only, don't edit, capture what comes to mind. The reason I recommend starting here, if you're doing this on your own, is this is often the easiest place to get the creative juices flowing. We start the document with leadership values, but if you don't have those codified, sometimes it's a little hard to get going. But most people can start with and putting bullet points to paper around what you expect from your team. The beauty of this framework is that it's a living document. Version 1.0 will evolve, and that's the point. You can ship it at 70%, share it with your team over coffee, and refine it based on their questions. Here's the permission you need to hear. 80% complete that you can use is infinitely better than 100% perfect that sits in your drafts folder forever. I'm going to walk you through the exact forcing function method I use in workshops in just a few minutes of time. But first, let me address some of the fears that keep leaders from ever sharing this thing. Perfection is the enemy of clarity, and clarity is what your team desperately needs. Next question. How is this different from a job description or our company values? Aren't we just duplicating work here? No. And this is a critical distinction. A job description defines the role. It says you are a marketing manager responsible for X and Y and Z. A company value statement defines how the organization behaves. It says, this is what we value. This is how we show up. This is how we make decisions. The rules of engagement guide defines how you as a leader operate. It's your personal leadership operating playbook. And here's an example. Company value, integrity. Your rules of engagement, if you commit to something, close the loop proactively. Don't make me follow up. Not letting me know does not equal completion. If that's your rule of engagement, that's how you show up. That's what matters to you. That's what you want other people to understand so they aren't guessing. You see the difference? One is aspirational. One is kind of this guide. The other is operational. And the rules of engagement guide is a very operational playbook. Your company might value communication, but your rules of engagement might say, lead with the bottom line up front. Don't give me 10 paragraphs to tell me what you need. Give me the answer first and then the supporting details. That specificity your team can actually use. And that's the difference. Our next question. I've been leading my team for years without doing this. Won't it feel awkward or weird to introduce this now? Like I'm changing the rules mid-game. And I hear this fear often, like, I don't want to introduce things that are new. I don't want to change the rules. But here's what I've learned from coaching hundreds of leaders through this process. Lead with gratitude and frame it as your growth. Here's a script that I give folks. Hey, team, I want to share something with you. I've been working on becoming a better leader, and part of that work is creating clarity for you so you don't have to guess what I'm thinking. I realize that sometimes I'm not as clear as I could be about how I make decisions, what I expect, or how I want us to work together. So I've created what's called a rules of engagement guide. This isn't about changing expectations. It's about making implicit expectations explicit. I'd love to walk through this with you, get your feedback, and use it as a tool for all of us to become more effective and move faster. Notice you're not saying you guys have been screwing up, so here are the new rules. You're saying, I'm working on me. Here's how I can serve you better. Anchor in the future, not the past. Here's the leader I'm working to become, beats the socks off of. Here's what you've been doing wrong. And here's the beautiful part. I've coached CEOs who've worked with their COO for 12 plus years who introduced this framework and it transformed their relationship. It's never too late to create clarity. In fact, one of my clients recently did this exact exercise. Sunday night planning out of sync with Monday morning closeouts. They'd worked together for a long time and never explicitly talked about their operating rhythms. The rules of engagement conversation began to fix the misalignment in just a few short minutes. Next question. What if my current behavior doesn't match what I'm writing down? Should I be aspirational or should I be brutally honest about how I actually show up? I love this. This is honesty tension, and it's such a great question. Here's the rule. Write what you do 80% of the time. Your non-negotiables, however, they've got to be 100%. Let me break it down. For most sections, your values, your feedback style, your decision-making, write down what you can actually commit to doing 80% of the time. Don't make it so aspirational that you only hit it 30% of the time. The team will sniff this out immediately and you will lose credibility fast. Here's the exception. Your non-negotiables, they've got to be 100%. These are the behaviors you hire and fire for. These are the lines in the sand. If you put victim mindset in your non-negotiables, you better be willing to address it every single time. Now, and this is key, you will violate your own rules. You're human. I know I've violated mine. And that's where the magic happens. Give yourself permission to call it out publicly. Give the team permission to call it out publicly. In your next team meeting, hey team, last week I realized I violated my own principle about being fully present. I was on my phone during our stand-up, and that's not the leader I committed to being. I owe you an apology and a commitment to do better. That vulnerability that you display, that's what creates psychological safety. So don't engineer perfection. Engineer honesty, accountability, and the courage to own when you fall short. Our next question is one that made me chuckle out loud because I know I've been in this boat a lot of times myself. How do I share this without sounding like a control freak or coming across as overly prescriptive? I don't want my team to think I'm micromanaging them. And this fear comes from a misunderstanding of what this document is for. Here's the reframe. Communication isn't something you do to someone. It's something you do for someone. You're not saying, here are my rules, follow them or else. What you're saying is, here's how I can remove the guesswork for you so that you can be more effective in your role. This is gift giving, not dictating. Here's how I recommend that you share it. Don't email this out as an attachment and expect everyone to read it and ask you any questions if they have any. They won't. Walk through it over coffee or lunch. Add your voice, your tone, your nuance, your why, your stories with every single section. Start with, I created this because I want to make it easier for you to work with me. I want to make it easier for you to be successful. I want you to know how I think, how I make decisions, what drives me crazy, so that you're never left guessing. Now, that's my goal. What questions do you have? What insights does this raise for you? What challenges does this create? It's an invitation to a dialogue. It's not a decree from up on high. And here's a real pro move. I used to share my rules of engagement with candidates during the interview process. I'd say, here's how I show up as a leader. Here's what I expect. Read this before you decide if you want this role, because I want to make sure this is a place where you can do your best work. And you know what happened? Some people opted out, and that was a gift for both of us. It saved everyone a ton of time, energy, and frustration. So don't apologize for clarity. Your team is begging for it, even if they don't know how to ask. In our next question, I was asked, what about team members who don't have the same intensity or won't care as much as I do? How do I set expectations without expecting everyone to be a mini me? And this is a reality check for every founder, CEO, entrepreneur, business leader that I work with. Here's what you need to hear. You cannot force someone to care at your level, and that's okay. Your job isn't to make sure that everyone cares as much as you do. Your job is to create the conditions where that level of ownership is possible. I like to use a 3-part model here to talk about how we do this. First, we codify it. We write down what we value, what we expect, and why it matters. That's what we're doing with our rules of engagement guide. And then we cast it. We need to communicate it regularly in different contexts until people can repeat it back to you. And when we do this with our playbook, we do this with our rules of engagement guide, people start to figure out really quick that this is serious and that it really makes a difference. And that's where the win happens, is when they use this and it works, they just get better results and move faster. And then you have to connect it. You have to help people see how their work connects to something bigger, how their work aligns to what you're talking about. Some people will lean in. They're going to internalize the mission. They're going to internalize the playbook. They'll go above and beyond. And some people won't. And they'll do good work. They'll show up. They'll deliver results. But they won't have your level of intensity. And both are acceptable. Your role is to create the space for the right behaviors. Some will step into it. Some won't. And the ones who consistently don't, they'll self-select out. That's part of cultural alignment at work. Do not chase perfection. Chase clarity. The right people will rise to meet it. Here's one of mine. This is verbatim from my rules of engagement guide. Please don't make me follow up. That sounds harsh, right? Like I'm being a jerk, but here's how I frame it, and here's why it matters to them. If you commit to something, close the loop proactively. Communicate status on key initiatives. Not letting me know does not equal completion. And here's what this does for you. When you close the loop without me having to ask, you build trust in your own reliability. That's how careers accelerate. That's how you earn autonomy. I have great systems for follow-up, but I don't want to use them. Please make my systems obsolete by closing the loop. Don't make me follow up. You can see the difference. I'm not saying you're irresponsible. What I'm saying is, here's what drives me crazy, and here's how you can avoid it, and here's what's in it for you. That's helpful. It's a gift. Here's another example for one of our workshop participants recently. I value attitude and effort over perfection. She told her team, if you try something and miss, that's okay with me. What's not okay is not trying because you're afraid of failure. I'll match your energy, your effort, and your commitment. Bring those, and we'll figure out the rest together. That's not being dictatorial. That's clarity. That's her letting them know what's important. So here's your action step. Think about the last 3 times you were frustrated with someone on your team. What was the gap? What did they not do that you expected them to do? Write that down. Then reframe it as an expectation. Here's what great looks like. Your team will thank you for it. Let me ask you something. Are you leading off of instinct? I mean, you've got the vision, you've built the thing, but most leaders I talk to are still flying without a system. Our Vision to Victory Leadership Accelerator changes that. It's a 12-week experience where we install the leadership operating system you've always needed: purpose, strategy, metrics, execution. But it's not just a course. It's not more content. It's a small group of leaders who are done chasing clarity and ready to lead with it. You'll walk out with a full leadership operating system, a trusted circle of peers, and a repeatable way to scale without losing yourself along the way. There are only 12 seats in this group, and our next cohort launches April 14th. I'm stuck on this how I give and receive feedback section. Can you give me some real examples of what this should actually say? Absolutely. This section is all about removing ambiguity from the feedback process. Let me give you some real examples, some from my own guide and some from the leaders I've coached. Example 1, timing preference. I prefer real-time feedback. Good news does not get better with age, and bad news doesn't get better by waiting. If something's off, tell me immediately. Don't save it for our next one-to-one. Example 2, public versus private. I will never give you corrective feedback in public. If I need to address something, it'll be in private, but I will praise you publicly and loudly. Example 3, questions as clarification. Here's one of mine that until I figured it out used to create a whole host of problems. Questions as clarification. When I ask questions, I am seeking understanding. I am not implying direction. I ask a ton of questions. They're my attempt to build alignment and clarity, to understand. It's not an attempt to steer you down a prescribed path. If you feel steered, I want you to push back. So until I started actually unpacking that and telling people these things, what happened is that people were misunderstanding my questions as my attempt to direct them down a different path, that they didn't know what was going on, and I was trying to lead them somewhere. It's not that at all. I just want to understand. And I gave them permission to push back, and it made such a big difference. Here's an example for mine as well. Radical candor. I want the harsh, unvarnished truth. You cannot hurt my feelings. I'd rather know now that something's broken than discover it 6 months from now when it's a catastrophic issue. I used to tell teams that, hey, I don't like being disappointed, but I despise being surprised. If you're going to have something that you know is going to be disappointing news, let's surface that early, because that's way better than being surprised. Please don't surprise me. Please don't hold on to things because you don't want to disappoint. Disappointment is not nearly as bad as a surprise. And that was something that when we unlocked that, people really leaned in. They were able to understand how to surface issues. All right, last example, how to give me feedback. If I'm violating my own commitments, call me out. You don't need to wait for a one-on-one. A simple, hey, didn't you say you'd be fully present? That's enough. I've given you permission. Use it. I used to tell teams, you can use this on me in public. If I am behaving in a way that is inconsistent with what I have said is important, you can call me out. In fact, I want you to call me out. It's my expectation that you'll call me out. And if you notice, all these things have in common that they're very specific, where they remove the guesswork. Your team doesn't want to have to figure out your feedback style through trial and error. They just want you to tell them. So tell them. Be specific, be honest, and give them the playbook. Can you walk me through a real example of how someone filled out the how I make decisions section? I'm drawing a blank here. Yes, and I'm going to give you a live example from a workshop I ran a few months ago. One of the participants, a CEO named Dustin, had this massive aha moment. He said, I make simple decisions very quickly, like almost instantly. But for long-term strategic decisions, I need lots of data and lots of time. It can take me weeks. And I realize now that drives my team crazy because they don't know which type of decision they're bringing me. Brilliant. So we wrote it down. If this is a tactical decision with a limited long-term impact, I'll give you an answer on the spot. If this is a strategic decision that affects our direction for the next 6 to 12 months, I need time. Give me data, give me scenarios, give me a week to process. Don't rush me. And don't interpret my slowness as indecision. It's just my process. That one paragraph eliminates so much frustration for his team. And here's another example from my own guide. Come with solutions, not problems. Frame it like this. Here's the problem. Here are 2 to 3 options I'm considering. Here's my recommendation and why. Now, I'll pressure test this with you. I'll use the Socratic questioning, but I'll play devil's advocate. But I'm not telling you what to do. I'm helping you sharpen your thinking. And here's one more that a lot of leaders resonate with. Show up with numbers. If you use words like a lot or a bunch or it happened yesterday, I'm going to push back. How many is a lot? 2 out of 4 or 2 out of 2,000? Those are very different problems. You see how specific these are? Your team doesn't want vague platitudes. They want the actual script for how to work with you. That's what you're giving them, the decoder ring. So think about the last time someone brought you a decision and it went sideways. What was missing? Write that down. Dusty, what's the forcing function workshop method that you mentioned? Can you break down the exact process? Absolutely, because this is the secret weapon that gets leaders done instead of stuck in perfectionism. And here's exactly what I do in workshops. It's the 30-minute rules of engagement build. Section 1, what I value. Set a timer for 5 minutes. Bullet points only, what matters most to you as a leader. Don't overthink it. Section 2, what you expect from yourself. Your commitments to your team. How will you show up? 4 minutes. Section 3, what I expect from my team. 4 minutes. The non-negotiable behaviors and standards. Remove the guessing game. Section 4, how you give and receive feedback. Again, 4 minutes. It's your style, your timing, your preferences. Section 5, how I make decisions. 4 minutes. Do you need data, gut feel, time? Be specific. Section 6, how you want to be approached. Only 3 minutes. A text for urgency, email for depth, a phone call in certain protocols. Walk through your communication protocols. In Section 7, your non-negotiables, 2 minutes. What behaviors erode trust? Call them out. Total time, 26 minutes. And here's the magic. When you give yourself less time, you write from instinct, not from perfection. You capture what's true, not what sounds good. And this is critical, share it. You walk through this with your team over coffee. You invite feedback. You refine it based on real questions. Version 1.0 will evolve, and that's the point. So here's your challenge. Block 30 minutes this week. Set timers, build this thing, ship it at 70%. Clarity creates velocity, and velocity beats perfection every single time. All right, let's talk about the transformation and results. What's the one thing that changes most dramatically when a leader actually implements this? Hands down, psychological safety through clarity. And let me tell you what I mean by this. When you codify your expectations and your commitments, you create a shared language for accountability in both directions. Remember the Apple Watch story from episode 27? My COO, George, was able to call me out in a one-on-one meeting because we had pre-established that kind of feedback was not only safe, it was expected. I had written my rules of engagement. I commit to being fully present in your time. And when I violated that by glancing at my watch over and over again, he had the permission and the framework to say, Dusty, I hate to interrupt, but clearly there are things more important than me going on right now, and I'd like to reschedule. That moment only happened because we had clarity, and that clarity created safety. And here's what else changes. Misalignment gaps close faster. I was working with a leadership team where the two individuals they weren't in sync. They didn't have the same way of showing up. They weren't on the same page. They each wrote their rules of engagement. And then we sat down together and walked through them. And we were able to establish that one who was an instinct-based decision maker was being driven crazy by the other's need for data. They just were talking past each other. They weren't on the same page. Well, once we identified that that was the root cause for their frustration, their misalignment disappeared. They were able to actually joke about it later on, saying, I know I'm not playing off your playbook rules right now, or, okay, I'll play by your rules. And it was tongue in cheek and it was a joke. But what was happening is they were changing and modifying their behavior to meet the expectations of the other person. I think the second thing that really happens is the story in my head problem disappears. Brene Brown talks about this. We all create stories about what other people are thinking or expecting. The story I've created in my mind, the rules of engagement helps reduce this. It makes implicit expectations very clear, very explicit. And lastly, your leadership scales. And whether you're just leading yourself, a team of 5, company of 500, or 5,000, this framework works. You codify it once and it compounds. And here's the bonus for you. In the guide at myrulesofengagement.com, there's a complimentary executive disc assessment worth $295. That assessment will give you deep insight into your behavioral style patterns, your communication preferences, and your decision-making patterns. So go download it, build it, use it, and watch what changes. All right, last question. For someone who hasn't listened to the episode yet, what's the one story they need to hear? Well, it's my Apple Watch story, hands down. And here's the 60-second version. About 10, 12 years ago, I got my first Apple Watch, and man, I loved it. Notifications on my wrist, calendar alerts, text, it felt like living in the future. But I didn't realize how disruptive it had become. I didn't realize how disruptive it was in my meetings. I'd glance at my wrist during conversations, thinking it was no big deal. And then one day I'm in a one-on-one with George, our COO, and these meetings were his time, his agenda, his priorities, 100% focused on helping him be more effective. I glanced down at my watch, saw a text, didn't think twice about it. And after a few of those, George stopped me mid-sentence and said, "Hey, Dusty, I hate to interrupt, but clearly there are things more important than me going on in your world right now. I'd like to reschedule my one-on-one for a time that's more convenient for you to be fully present." Ouch. He called me out. And you know what? He was 100% right, and I deserved it. But here's why it worked. He was able to tell me that because we had explicitly made it safe. We had explicitly communicated in my rules of engagement that I commit to being fully present in your time. If I'm not, call me out. He did, and it changed everything. That's the power of this framework. It creates clarity, safety, alignment, and accountability in both directions. If you haven't listened to episode 27, go back and listen. It's one of our most downloaded episodes for a reason. And here's what I want you to do. Here's your gift. Go to myrulesofengagement.com and download the complete guide. It includes all 7 sections. It's very simple. It's got a step-by-step process for building out your own rules of engagement and a complimentary executive disc assessment. Again, that's worth $295. This is not the free online version. This is one that I'm investing in for your growth because I think it's worth it. This disc assessment will give you deep insight to your behavioral style, your communication preferences, and your decision-making patterns, insights that you can use immediately. Block out 30 minutes this week and build yours. Your team is waiting for this. They're begging for this. They're asking for this clarity, even if they don't know how to ask for it. Go give them the gift of knowing how to work best with you. myrulesofengagement.com. Hey, before you go, if this episode helped you see leadership differently, I have 3 personal requests. First, and this is the most important one, share this with one leader who needs it. Think of someone in your network who's frustrated with their team's execution or is trying to scale their own impact. Copy this episode link right now and text them, "Hey, I just listened to this episode and I think you'll get real value from it." That simple act of sharing, that is servant leadership in action. Second, subscribe to Leadership Unlocked. Whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or your favorite podcast player, just hit subscribe or the follow button. That way you won't miss the next episode and it helps us reach more leaders like you. And third, if you're willing, this would be a huge help for us. Leave a 5-star rating and write a quick review. I know it takes 60 seconds of your time, but here's what it does. It helps other leaders discover the show. Every rating, every review, it's how we expand our impact together. So those 3 things: share with a friend, subscribe, leave a review. I'm deeply appreciative, and that would give us so much help. Thanks for being part of the Leadership Unlocked community. Now go create some clarity for others.